In today's video, we're going to teach you how to quickly and effectively speed up your tunes using the classic melody, the Black Bear. Stay tuned. Well, hello everybody, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please think about giving the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hitting that bell icon to be notified of when I post new videos. I also teach Skype and online lessons if you want more personalized instruction, but more on that later. There are PDF links in the description below of all the materials we're going to be using today, so go ahead, put those on a tablet, print them out, have them in front of you so you can follow along. I know we've all been there. We have a tune that we're playing. It might even be going well, but it's not at speed. It's not as quick or accurate as you would like it to be for, I don't know, whatever it might need to be. If it's a dance tune, well, you want dancers to be able to dance to it. If it's a march, you'd like to be able to, I don't know, maybe march in a parade to it. And while you may be able to play it well, you're not playing it at the speed you want. Well, today, I have some techniques that should help you take that tune from wherever it currently is to a tempo and a level of playing that will be where you need it to be, where you can do what you need to do with that melody. So in this method, briefly, first we're going to look through the whole tune and find the tricky bits, if you will. It's often these snapped rhythms and similar things. We'll get into it in the tune. We want to make sure that there's no technical bit in the tune that's going to impede your progress in being able to play it. So we have to identify those first. Then we're going to use a metronome to start from a point of control to a point of complete disarray, to take the tune from something we can do to something that we can't quite do. But in the process of doing that, we're going to get our fingers ready for, I don't know, some pretty incredible things, including speeding up your tune. So today we're going to be using the classic tune, the Black Bear, and a metronome to use a technique that I use myself and that I teach to my students to get melodies up quickly and effectively. So one of the first things I like to do is actually find the snapped rhythms within a tune, and I like to have it printed out and use a highlighter, though if you're online, maybe your app can highlight it in some way. I was able to do it with Apple's Preview, as you'll see on the on-screen documents here, but a printout and a highlighter works just fine. A snapped rhythm is when the downbeat is a short note, in this case, a 30-second note. The thing about snapped rhythms is, well, they sneak up on you. In so much of our pipe music, the note you land on is a dotted or pointed note. That means when you get there, it's already long, and it's kind of okay if you hold it maybe a little longer than you would otherwise, especially without a metronome. But when it's a snapped rhythm, you can't do that. You have to hit that note and immediately jump onto the other note, or the rhythmic feel of the tune just doesn't work. One of the things I like to do, and you can see a bit of highlighting already happening here, is I like to take a highlighter and go through and find both the snapped rhythms, which we'll talk about in just a minute, as well as the hidden triplets that may be occurring. We'll talk about those as well. So for this tune, we're going to be subdividing it as we initially start counting it. And that means we're not just going to be counting the downbeats, the 1 and the 2 of the 2/4. We're actually going to be putting a metronome click to the ands. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. And because we're doing that, I want to mark any sort of snapped rhythm that's also starting on the and, not just the numerical down, not just on 1 and 2, but also on the ands of both of those beats. If we go to bar 2 of the third line, and again, when we're counting bars, we count the full measures. We don't count the pickup measure that you see here. You see the E, that's not measure 1. It's kind of like measure, don't pay any attention to this. And then you have measure 1 and 2 of that line. So in any case, we look at the second full measure or bar of line 2, and we can see that the last two notes are a snapped rhythm. That is the and of beat 2, and it's a 30-second note to a dotted 16th. So I'm going to highlight that, and you'll see on screen with a graphic what I'm doing, but I'm just using a highlighter here. I'm putting it through the beams on the bottom. I like to highlight it because when the rhythm is snapped, and again, that's when the first note is short, it means there's no warning. When you get to that note, you can't hold it and think about how to make the note change after it. You have to kind of land on it and keep on going. So this gives us some visual indication that it's a snapped rhythm that you're going to have to, well, keep on going, get down to that D. So take a long note from earlier in the bar and figure out how to do all the note changes you're going to do at that point. So there's a snapped rhythm, just those two notes. But if you look at the top of that very beat, you can also see there's another snapped rhythm. But look at the note right before it. You see that it is also a short note. So while the upbeat of the first beat, the F doubling to the E, is a pointed rhythm. The fact that that short note is going into another short note going into a long note. So that's E, G grace note to F to high A. That's going to be ba-ba-bum, ba-da-dum. It's a hidden triplet, and I like to call it that because it's not clear. And by triplet, I don't mean a true tuplet as you would find in so much of the music. This is more of what you're going to find in like a Strasberg and things like that. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, where you're playing three notes in rapid succession evenly, though we are holding the last note. So it's not triplet, triplet. That's not what I'm looking for. It's da-da-da, da-da-da, but not da-da-da. There's no sort of pulsing in there. It's da-da-da. As to where the beat falls, that depends on how it's written in the music. In this case, it's da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. Short, short, long, short, short, long, where that beat is falling on that second note. So I'm going to take the same highlighter, and I'm going to highlight from that E through the F to the high A. And I'm going to stop right there because I want to make sure that I'm not just trying to highlight that whole bit of business right there. I want to see a break between the highlighting from the E, G grace note to F high A, comma, because we're a long note, to a short note. Then we're going to do that short F to the D. So once you've gone and identified these snapped areas, before we go to the beginning of the tune, it's now very useful to start practicing these areas so that they're under control before we try to do anything else with the tune. In this case, I want to start on that F doubling on the upbeat of beat 1, and I just want to get to that high A. And that'll be da-da, da-da-da, da-da, da-da-da. So nice long F, and then we want to try to evenly but quickly get to that high A. Notice this is a half F doubling, meaning that we're coming down from a note, either high G or high A, and in this case there's not an introductory grace note. If I'm just going to start with that F though, I'm going to just play it like a normal full-on F doubling. Now let's actually stick a metronome along with this. I have it at, that seems maybe a bit quick. Let's try 65. And this is, again, I'm subdividing the beat right now, which is why I have it in 4. So that's like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So we've practiced that hidden triplet. Now let's go ahead and add that next snapped rhythm after it. Make sure you're waiting for the beat to get to the short F, that you want to give that high A its full duration, and that you're making that note change right on the beat. Dee-dee, ba-da-dee, da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum, da-dum. We're going to continue to go through the tune now. We're going to find all the bits of snappiness and hidden triplets that we can find. So as I'm reading through this, I'm going to start at the beginning, and I'm looking for something short. So in a group of, say, 4 notes here, that would mean either the first or third note starts with a third flag, a 32nd note. In that first measure, we got nothing. Second measure, we got nothing. Third measure, we have nothing. But if you look at the top of measure 4, you can see that the very first beat does have a 32nd note starting that to a dotted 16th. And if we look before it, we can see that, oh yes, that is also a 32nd note. So right there, boom, hidden triplet, but da-da, but da-dum. Same rhythm that we dealt with before, where the beat is coming in the middle of the triplet. Well, not quite exactly the middle, but it's happening within the triplet, but da-dum, but da-dum. So we want to go ahead, and I've already highlighted it here, but I'm going to just go ahead and make sure I can see that. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep reading across. We have a normal pointed rhythm, but we get to the end of the line, we can see that on that and right there we have a 32nd note C to a dotted 16th A, short to long, and if we go back one note before the C, boom, we can see there that that beat also short, so that is another triplet hidden in plain sight, bum, ba, ba, bum, bum, ba, ba, bum. So right there we can see we have 2 hidden triplets happening in Black Bear. Let's go ahead and try to get these under control. To do that, I'm going to start with the E doubling before the first triplet and end on that D. I'd recommend doing this a few times without a metronome, making sure that you can get all of the technical bits around that correct first. But when ready, in with the metronome. Again, this is subdivided. Now let's figure out how to do this second one. So this time we're coming from a low A, so it'll be A held nice and long, but before the beat we're going to come into the B, and then the next click of the metronome will be on that G grace note to the short C, and then a D grace note to the A, otherwise known as a tackum right here. Bo-ba-ditum, bo-ba-tackum. Again, let's start this a few times without the metronome. As you're going down with that D grace note, don't make it too big. We don't want to hear. That D can sound very tonal if it's not kind of crisp and small. So nice, very small D grace note taking you from C to A. Now let's put it to this metronome. Let's keep looking for any of these rhythms in line 2. So again, I'm looking for, in this case, a 32nd note to start a rhythm, and I'm not seeing any. So line 2, we're good. Let's keep going in line 3. We've already pointed out 2. And the structure of this tune is such that this first phrase is actually just repeated. So the same 2 ideas, the triplet, the hidden triplet from E, G grace note to F to high A, at the end of the line here, going into a snapped rhythm with the F to A. We've already worked that out before, so we won't do it again here. So before we apply the metronome to the tune and start trying to go at it and trying to get it faster, make sure you can play these rhythms. All right, let's continue in line 4 and just see if there happens to be any. I'm looking at the down and the up, down and up, all dotted notes, down and up. So there is no snapped rhythms in line 4, so there's nothing to highlight in line 4. So now, before we worry about a metronome, I would go through probably a line at a time and see if we can just make sure that we can play everything we're looking at here with a good approximate sense of timing. Approximate meaning long notes are long, short notes are short, but we're not trying to be in a super strict meter yet. We want to make sure we can wrap our fingers around this. B to be Tara Lewis can be rather tricky. It's beyond what I want to go through here to go into that, but there will be a card here and a link in the description below to my Tara Lewis exercise video that can really help you get this particular thing under control. So if that's something that's causing you some problems, go ahead, sort that out before we come back to Black Bear and try to speed it up. Once you know that you can get your fingers wrapped around the tune in a reasonable capacity, now it's time for a bit of trial and error while we try to figure out a good starting speed for the metronome, something where you can stay on beat and keep the rhythms intact as written. I've picked 65. Let's see how that's going. And to be honest, that's a pretty good speed right there. I want to make sure that I'm really getting it clean. This is our base mark speed. This is where we can actually deliver the goods. Now you're welcome to go through the whole tune like this at that speed, or you can apply what we're about to do to a line at a time. For us right now, we're going to do it a line at a time. We've already played it at 65, or whatever speed you're needing to play it at your speed. It could be 50, it could be 43. Doesn't really matter. Whatever speed that you can deliver this cleanly, accurately, with the grace notes and embellishments where they need to be. Then it's time to start speeding it up. And as we speed it up, it's okay if it gets a little messy. That seems counterproductive, but follow me here. So we're at 65. I'm going to go ahead and put this now up to 70. So if you speed it up by 5 and it's suddenly just messy beyond belief and nothing's making sense, maybe speed it up by 2. But I'm pretty sure that by 5, it may be a little less clear, a little less clean than your base speed, but it should be within some sort of okay. But, do what you need to do. But we're going to go to 70. We're going to try it again. I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm actually going to speed it up to 80. And remember, we're subdivided, so this is actually 40 actual beats per minute when we're counting the quarter notes. So now we're up to 80, and I'm going to keep speeding this up. And for now, I'm actually going to be going up by 10 beats per minute at a time until it starts getting a little bit topsy-turvy. Now let's try 90. Let's try 100. I definitely haven't used my brain. I think it's still going okay. Definitely using my brain a lot more. I'm going to go up to 120. You keep speeding it up as much as you need to until you start noticing it kind of going pretty sideways. Let's try 140. And at this speed, this will probably be the last speed I go before I stop subdividing the number over here. And I'll probably have to divide that by 2 because I'm at this speed, that's a lot of clicking. So now I'm going to keep going up by 10, but again, that would normally be 150. I could do a bunch of magic stuff here. Instead, I'm just going to put this down to 2/4. I'm using the tempo app by Frozen Ape here, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever metronome works for you is just fine. But now that we're counting the actual quarter notes, and not the eighth notes, we're going to take this thing down to now 75, which means now I have to start on the upbeat because that pickup note is on the up. Let's try 80. Still doing okay. Let's try 90. And that's starting to get just a little bit messy toward the end. That was not the cleanest little bit, but that's okay. That's what I'm trying to show. Let's take it up to 100 because we're trying to get that metronome up. Not great. That's pretty messy, but we're going to go one more faster because why not? Let's go 105 and see what happens. See, at that point, my E doublings aren't even really firing. I mean, that's crazy fast, even for Black Bear. I'm going to try it one more time. It's probably not going to work out too well. Yeah, so at that speed, that's pretty messy. My E doublings aren't firing, and I don't want to now start reinforcing bad habits. That's not what this is about. So what is this about? Well, we need to work both on our accuracy, which is why we had a core starting speed, but we also need to make sure that we're developing our dexterity. You have to move your fingers fairly fast on the pipes, especially in many of our embellishments. We want to do so accurately and cleanly, but not slowly, not every time. If the only way you practice is slowly, then you'll get really good at playing slowly, including your embellishments. This kind of forces you out of your comfort zone into those faster speeds. So we started at 32.5 and we got to 105. So what I would like you to do now, whatever your speeds are, it could have been 35 to 65. It could have been 45 to 90. It doesn't matter. I want you to pick a speed right in the middle of that range. So between 32.5 and 105, that would be, I don't know, 75-ish. So I'm going to go ahead, take this back down to 75. So now that it's at 75, it's at that halfway speed between where it was fast and just a disaster and slow and super clean and accurate. I want you to go to that halfway speed and see, test yourself. How clean is it? Is it as clean as it was before? Is it still pretty messy? I don't know. You're going to have to play it yourself and find out. Let's see where this is for me at 75. Maybe a little bit of rushing at the end. So I'm going to write down that was not quite clean enough for what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that I'm upping my speed, but that I'm not sacrificing too much of my accuracy in doing so. So we're at 75. Let's go down to 70. And just see if maybe I have a little bit more control over the end of that line. I'm going to even go to the D throw starting the next line to make sure that I'm getting the timing of that first line correct. I'm going to go down to 67, just a little bit slower. I'm feeling a little out of control right there. Now it's starting to feel a little bit better. I still think there's a little bit of work to do right there with those grace notes, but I'm going to now write down 67, and this time not subdivided, not 32 and a half, but 67. And now I know that's a good speed for me to start practicing at. Now, if in another 3, 4, 5 run-throughs of this piece, I still feel I'm a little loose with my grace note timing, I'll take it down to 64. But your goal is to try to see if you can keep that number higher than your starting number. Because if you started at something like 40 beats per minute and you were able to get it to 65 beats per minute, but really messy, and you have to bring it back down to 50 beats per minute, well, at first it's like, man, I had to bring it down a lot. But did you? You started at 40. If you can now play it at 50 with something resembling the same amount of accuracy, that's pretty great. If you can play it at 44, that's still 10% faster in just a few minutes of working through a line. And once you do that, write that number down, circle it. That's the number tomorrow or your next practice session, however you structure your practice. I want you, the next time you play, to start with that number. And first, test yourself. Play that line, that part, that tune, however much of the tune you're working on, at that speed. Can you play it 3 to 5 times correctly without mistakes? If you can't, that's fine. Bring the metronome down a little bit more. What I think you'll find, and what I find more often than not, is that you're not going to have to bring it down to as slow as it was at the beginning of the day before. And you might find that it's just fine, that you're actually fairly accurate at that new starting speed. And then ramp it the same way through and see if you can beat your top speed, even again, it's a little messy or even really messy. When you get to that top speed, find some point between where you started and your new top speed and see if you can play at that midway point accurately and cleanly. And if not, just start notching it down a little bit at a time until it's where it is good and clean. What I think you're going to find is that you're going to slowly bring it up while also really solidifying the tune in your head and in your fingers. In playing it at those super fast speeds, it tends to more or less like it kind of starts embedding itself in your hands almost a little bit because you don't have a lot of time to think when you're at crazy fast tempos. And this isn't just for 2/4 marches. This is for any type of tune that you're wanting to get faster. So find your tune, go through, find any tricky, snapped rhythmic bits that might cause you some grief, or anything else that you might know causes you some grief. If you know, like again, Tara Lewis cause you grief, then make sure that you can play in and around all of that pretty well before you start with the metronome. Then, when you get your metronome going, find a speed that you can reliably and consistently play the tune accurately without error. Then, 5 to 10 beats at a time, start upping that metronome and playing along with it. Allow yourself to be a little bit messy as this occurs. You'll know the point where you can't make that metronome go any faster. Your fingers can't keep up or there's nothing resembling the melody left. But don't stop just because you miss 1 or 2 grace notes. That's not the goal or the point of what we're doing to speed it up. Then, once you find that end goal, pick a point somewhere between where you started and where you ended up tempo-wise and play along at that speed. So if you started at 50 and you got to 100, then try to get to, 75. Play it at 75. Is it clean? Is it good? Is it accurate? If so, great. I would keep it there. Play that another 5 to 10 times at that speed and make sure that that's true. If you notice though, at that speed, you're starting to get kind of messy at the 3rd, 4th, 5th run through of it. Metronome again might still be a little hot, might be a little bit fast. Go ahead and start lowering it down. 75 might need to become 72 or even 67. But remember, in this example, we started at 50. So if you can get to 67 in a single practice session, that is an enormous amount of improvement. But you have to be your own judge. It's about accuracy as well as speed. I know speed never is supposed to be talked about. It's kind of one of these things you can't talk about. But we all know, like, Black Bear doesn't really sound like Black Bear at 40 beats per minute. And a jig can't be danced if you're playing it at 85. So there's a reason to bring some things up, but keep it within your ability to play them good, clean, and accurate. But test yourself and do so maybe even regularly as you're bringing the tune up from a piece of sheet music into a memorized tune in your head. And I promise you, this exercise will also really help get that tune solidified under your fingers. Well, there you go. There's a method I use myself. I teach to all of my students to take a tune from maybe not very fast, maybe not very accurate, to very fast and very accurate. So go ahead, try it out on the Black Bear here. Try it out on a tune of your own and let me know in the comments below how this works for you. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you got something out of the video, please think about giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, and commenting below with any thoughts you might have. I also have a Patreon where as little as $1 a month goes a really long way to helping support the channel. You'll see some names scrolling now of folks that contribute monthly to the channel. I'd love to add your name to this list. There are perks like early access to videos and some other exclusive content, so please head over to my Patreon, check that out, and add your name to this list of fine folks. I also teach Skype and online lessons. Go ahead and head over to www.mattpiper.com or email me at the address you see here, and we'll get you going. I'm working with folks from all over the planet. I hope to work with you soon. I also have a line of Command Your Bagpipe merchandise, like the fine shirt I'm wearing here. So go ahead. There's shirts and hats, water bottles, mugs, all sorts of stuff. You can never have too much bagpipe merchandise, so check it out and let the world know that you command your bagpipe. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and until next time, cheers.